What is up, my friends? My name is Danny. Welcome back to Jones Vibes. There have been 37 MCU films released to date, and it's been like a year and a half or 2 years since I've talked about them. There's also been several films released since then, and so after looking through all these films, today felt like the right moment. My friends, it's time to rank the MCU. Before we get started, I want to let you know, head down to the comments section, leave me your ranking down below. I'd love to see it, and let's dive in. All right, guys, starting in at 37, this was last place on my last ranking as well. This is The Marvels. And in the past, I've talked about critical things that I didn't like about the movie, but let's be honest here, this movie just sucked. It just wasn't a good movie. And moving on to number 36, we have another trash movie. We have Thor: The Dark World. I've watched this movie an embarrassing amount of times, and it just never gets better. But moving on to number 35, I got Thor: Love and Thunder, and honestly, I've only ever seen this movie once. I should probably give it another shot. When I walked out of it the first time, I was sort of high on it. I was like, okay, was that good? But upon thinking about it, and as time has gone by, I've just really realized just how bad this movie is. I don't know if I want to watch it again. It's going to take a lot for me to watch it again, but maybe I should. But moving on to number 34, we have The Incredible Hulk, and I honestly think that the TikTok edits, or like the Reels or the YouTube Shorts, have done this movie a lot of justice, but it's also done one of those things that I feel like happened to Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, where people just think it's better than it is. Like, when you go back and watch The Incredible Hulk, it's just not that great of a movie. There's some really cool action set pieces. Edward Norton wasn't that bad, but it's just not the best movie in the world. And moving on to number 33, yes, I put this in front of The Incredible Hulk, we got Captain Marvel. And I don't know, yes, this movie did make $1 billion. I feel like just because it was sandwiched in between Infinity War and Endgame, it did well. People wanted to go to the theater and see what was going to happen next. I don't necessarily think this movie is great, but I also don't hate it. Like, every time I watch this or rewatch when I'm going through all the MCU films, it's just not a bad time. I know it's kind of far down the list, but I don't necessarily dislike it as much as some people do. But moving on to number 32, we have Black Widow. And I just don't really feel like this movie needed to exist. It did a good job at introducing us to the Red Guardian and introducing us to Yelena, so like, I am happy that it exists. But if you were going to make a movie about Black Widow, you should have made it way earlier, and that's not to say that this movie isn't a little bit of fun. Like, I thought the artistic style of it with the Nirvana intro and all that stuff was a pretty good time. I just don't really know if it was that necessary to be a movie, you know what I mean? It could have just been like a special presentation and they would have gotten away with it. But anyways, that's 32. Moving on to 31, we got Ant-Man and the Wasp. And the reason I'd say this one is higher than the ones I have below it is purely just because the humor. I really like the humor that they have in this, and I really like Paul Rudd. Just the writing, man. Like, I find myself watching this movie, and although I don't love it that much, I do end up laughing a lot, and that definitely bumps it up the list a little bit for me. But moving on to number 30, we got The Eternals, and this was actually much higher on my list during the last rank. I think when you're looking at MCU films, it's not like I'm ranking these things very critically. I'm ranking them in terms of importance to the overall MCU, and also just in terms of rewatchability and kind of just where I find myself with the movie. The Eternals, I thought, was a really good movie when I first saw it, but I have no inclination, no desire to go back and watch this movie because it means nothing. The post-credit scene means nothing, and although it was a pretty fun movie, I think if you're looking like subjectively at each movie and how it was made, I think Chloe Zhao did a great job with this thing. It looks great, the writing's great, the pacing's pretty great, you know, it's not a bad movie per se, but where it fits in the MCU, I don't think it really fits in. But moving on to number 29, I have the first Ant-Man, and this is kind of where things start trending the other way, trending positively. The first Ant-Man came out, and everybody was hating on it, everybody was thinking it was going to be bad, and it was just great. Talking about the writing like I did with Ant-Man and the Wasp, like, this is a movie that always makes me laugh, but this first one specifically, they did a great job at this origin story. Like, it made me understand why people like Ant-Man and what's so powerful about the character himself. So, 29, Ant-Man. Moving on to number 28, I have Guardians Volume 2. One of the biggest reasons that I like this is really Kurt Russell. I think his addition to the MCU, and I think his addition to just the Guardians franchise, if you will, was a very clever thing. And as you'll see with all of these specific characters, it's really hard to make a great sequel, and I think James Gunn pulled it off with Guardians Volume 2. Moving on to number 27, we have Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And believe it or not, this one has worked its way up my list as well. I actually don't know in terms of number where it it was last time, but I am starting to come around a little bit more on this movie. I enjoyed it the first time that I watched it. I did rewatch it once after that, and I found myself liking it less, but recently I've watched it again, and I found myself liking it more. Now, is it a perfect movie? Do I really agree with what they did with Wanda still? No, not really. I really loved where her character went in WandaVision, and to see that kind of like hard right turn in Multiverse of Madness, you could argue that it makes sense. It didn't really work for me, but I am coming around to this movie. Give me some more time, maybe. But moving on to number 26, I have the original Thor, and my argument here is the same. This movie is not that great of a movie, but it's very nostalgic to me. I love the character, and it's a guy with a hammer in space in a rainbow bridge and shit, and there's a bunch of good actors. What's not to love? You know what I mean? This was early MCU, baby. This was early MCU, and I had a great time, so it's still kind of up there on my list. But moving on to number 25, I have Doctor Strange. I love the first Doctor Strange. You know what actually kind of elevates it for me is that What If Doctor Strange episode, man. Like, there's so much emotional depth in that episode alone. There's so much emotion that I don't know if that kind of just like ties into the movie now for me, because the movie isn't that emotional in general, but I do like the third act a lot, and I've always just enjoyed the first Doctor Strange. But moving on to a movie that has actually fallen down the list, we got Thor Ragnarok. As time goes by, I'm just getting a little bit tired of this movie. There's no denying that Taika Waititi's first outing in the MCU was a freaking banger. Like, when this movie came out, everybody was talking about it. It still does hold up. It still is so good, but I am kind of getting over it. So it's trending in a downward direction. But moving on to 23, I always know this is going to be controversial wherever it falls on my list. Some people love it. Most people hate it. Quantumania. And did Kang end up working out? Not at all. And am I pissed about that still? Absolutely. But do I love Jonathan Majors' performance as Kang in this freaking movie? Yes, I do. And that's purely why it is here on this list. I loved his performance in this movie. I hated the way that they kicked the character out, but still, I'll watch this movie any day just to watch some of those scenes with Jonathan Majors, because I thought that performance was freaking amazing. But moving on to what are we at? We're at 22, and I got Brave New World. And we kind of got a newbie here. We got one of the newcomers working its way up the list. I enjoyed Brave New World. There are a lot of people that complained about the script, about the pacing. There were a lot of reshoots. It was pretty noticeable. But I love Sam Wilson as Captain America. I really loved Harrison Ford's Red Hulk. I thought the transformation that they showed in the movie was so freaking awesome, and I really liked the third act of this film. I haven't rewatched it since, so we'll see where this holds up in future ranking lists. But moving on to number 21, I got Spider-Man Far From Home. And this is another one of those films that just gets way too much hate. I don't know why people hate on Spider-Man Far From Home so much. Jake Gyllenhaal is freaking awesome in it. I love the story that it takes. You have the connections to Iron Man and the technology. You have a little bit of like budding romance with Peter and MJ. I love where this movie goes, and it connects so seamlessly into No Way Home that it's perfect to me. I really like the MCU Spider-Man trilogy. I really do, and I'll talk more about those movies. But moving on, number 20, I got Deadpool and Wolverine, and not so much because this is a great MCU film. I don't know if anybody ever expected the new Deadpool MCU film to be that great, but it's freaking hilarious. I loved seeing Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, and what they ended up doing, what they ended up pulling off with Gambit, with Johnny Storm, but Chris Evans, Johnny Storm, all of the stuff with the Void. I feel like a lot of that is going to end up coming up a little bit more in Doomsday as well as Secret Wars, so it might end up having some more tie-ins down the road. Ryan Reynolds is just going full bore in this movie. Every other line is trying to be hilarious, and so the rewatches haven't been as great, but I'll tell you what, the first time I saw it, I was crying laughing, and that theatrical experience counts for something. But moving on to number 19, we have Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and I actually took the opportunity recently to rewatch this film for the first time since watching it in theaters, and God, it's so good, dude. Like, Ryan Coogler as a director is so freaking good, especially after watching Sinners. You're just like, good lord, this guy's playing on a different level. And so obviously, rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. This was a crazy production. They had to completely flip this thing around and rework the entire story with Letitia Wright as the lead, you know what I mean? But you bring in Namor, which was a lot of fun. You bring in Ironheart, and just the pure emotion of losing Chadwick, losing the Black Panther, but then the hope that is presented at the end of this movie. It's just a beautiful thing, man. The rewatch was actually really, really powerful. So that is why it's worked its way a little little bit up my list. Moving on to number 18, though, we got Iron Man 2, and I don't really care what people say about this one, man. Iron Man 2 is great. These early MCU films, I think just as time goes on, at least in the space that we've been in, probably the last like 2-3 years, they just look so much better, right? Like when you were looking at Iron Man 2 compared to some of the films like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, you're like, I don't know if Iron Man 2 is that great, but man, the rewatch is so kind to this movie. I freaking love it, and it also brings me straight over to my number 17, and that is Iron Man 3. And I probably rewatched this one more than most of these movies because it's a Christmas movie. It's like one of the only freaking MCU Christmas movies. That and No Way Home I would consider a Christmas movie, and so I enjoy watching this one every time. I think it does a lot for Tony Stark's character. It's really a personal story for him, and it's more of a personal story that I think we get out of the first two. That's not to say it's the best one out of the trilogy, but I do really enjoy Iron Man 3. But moving on to number 16, Captain America, the First Avenger, and there's just not much wrong with this movie. There really isn't. This is another one of those cases where it's just like history is being very kind to the first Captain America. I remember when it came out, the only thing you really had to compare it to were the Iron Man films, and you're like, I don't know, Iron Man's probably better. But now, looking at it in terms of like comparing it to every other, comparing it to freaking Black Widow or comparing it to Thor the Dark World, like Captain America the First Avenger freaking rules. Hugo Weaving freaking rules. I love this movie. But moving on to number 15, coming around to another new film, I got Fantastic Four: First Steps. The new Fantastic Four is the best Fantastic Four movie ever made. Did it live up to my expectations? Yes. Was I hoping that it would exceed my expectations? Also yes. And it didn't quite do that. I haven't rewatched it since theater, so this could definitely go up or down. I love what Matt Shakman did with this universe, and I also think Doomsday and Secret Wars are going to be very kind to this film, so then going back and watching this, you're going to be like, God, I love this movie so much. Just right now, it's sitting a little bit further down the list than maybe I expected before it coming out. But moving on to number 14, we have Spider-Man Homecoming, and I don't understand people's like negativity towards the MCU Spider-Man. I could rant about this all day, but this first movie is so good. Michael Keaton Vulture, like, what are you guys missing? It has this like John Hughes Breakfast Club vibe. It's different than any other Spider-Man story that's been told, and I love that about it. I also love Tom Holland's Peter Parker. They just nailed it, dude. Going from Civil War into Homecoming, it was just a very exciting time, and I love this movie. But then moving on to number 13, I got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I talked in length, I think, about this in my last list, but it's just that Rocket and Lila stuff is going to prevent me from maybe ever rewatching this film. So the only thing I have to base this off of is my emotional reaction upon watching it in theaters for the first time. In the entire movie, I was like, oh God, please. But oh my God, dude, did you hear that squeak? All right, we're really getting into it. Moving on to number 12, we have Age of Ultron. This is one that history has definitely been kind to. After the first Avengers, I think people only have that to compare it to. And so you compare Age of Ultron to the Avengers, but I really, really like what Joss Whedon did with this movie. It's a darker tone. Is it as good as the first Avengers? No. Is it as good as Infinity War or Endgame? Maybe not. But James Spader as freaking Ultron, it doesn't get better. Every time I rewatch this movie, I'm like, God, this is so good. But moving on to number 11, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. It just doesn't get any cooler than this movie. This movie was so iconic. It really proved that the MCU could just do something different. And props to Kevin Feige for trusting the process, for trusting these different directors to come in and tell their own stories and make their own staple on the MCU. I know the MCU is very much fire by committee, you know what I mean? There are a lot of different cooks in the kitchen when it comes to these movies, but this is a breath of fresh air. And this is one of those movies in the MCU that you feel like nobody was really meddling with. Like they really got away with one in this, and then they proceeded to let James Gunn do his thing for Volume 2 and Volume 3. And so I love it, man. But getting to the top 10, we have Spider-Man No Way Home. And believe it or not, this movie was my number 1 on my last time ranking. I was really, really high on this movie. It's definitely some recency bias there. I've watched it since it's come out. I absolutely love this movie still. It made my top 10 out of 37, so clearly I love it a lot, but it's not quite my number 1. There are definitely some flaws within this movie, and there are definitely some other movies that I enjoy watching more than this movie, but the way that it concludes that first Spider-Man trilogy within the MCU, I think is perfect. The way that the fan service brings all of these Spider-Men together, you just never thought that that was possible. So even sitting on your couch and watching it, you still, every time Andrew Garfield shows up, you're like, woo! You know? But yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home, number 10. Moving on to number 9, I have The Avengers. And this is the movie, this used to be my number 1. Like, I always used to just say, The Avengers is my favorite MCU movie. And I just love what they did. I can't believe they pulled this off. This is another one of those milestones for the MCU, being like, hey, you like Captain America and Thor and Iron Man? Well, check this shit out. We're bringing all of them together. And it worked, and it's beautiful. And I know that Joss Whedon gets a lot of hate, but you got to give the guy credit for being able to pull this movie off, because he was like the originator of this big team-up type movie, Avengers. This was a really big deal, and so love that movie. But moving on to number 8, we have Captain America Civil War. And similar to the Avengers movies, it was such a weird thing when this movie came out, because it was a Captain America movie, but it felt like the Avengers because of how many characters were in it. And I think that's what a lot of us have been craving out of like the recent MCU. It's like, if you're gonna show us these movies, like if you're gonna have Captain America Brave New World, where the hell is Shang-Chi? You know what I mean? Like, they set a precedent back then, introducing the Black Panther in this movie, introducing Peter Parker in this movie. It was so much fun, and you knew that it was going somewhere. It was just such an awesome time to be alive. But at the core of this film, it is Tony versus freaking Cap versus freaking Steve Rogers. And I just, the last little bit of this movie, you have them fighting, and then you have Zemo and freaking T'Challa, and that whole scene, it's a beautiful movie, dude. I love Captain America Civil War. I love watching it every time. We're also getting over to another new film, and I didn't expect, before watching this movie, had you told me it was this high on my MCU list, I would not have believed you. But my number 7 is Thunderbolts. And God, this movie is so good. It's just so real, man. This is like the realest that the MCU has ever got. It's all about mental health, and I love that about it. I also love the performances in this movie. It just came out on Disney Plus not that long ago, so I'm really excited to rewatch it, and I feel like the practicality throughout the movie, it's definitely gonna hold up for like a couch viewing. You know what I mean? Some of these other movies, the CGI plays well in theaters, but then you sit down and watch it and you're like, that looks pretty fake. Thunderbolts is definitely not that, and I feel like what they managed to pull off with this movie, it's just, it's a really beautiful thing. I'm really looking forward to seeing those characters show up in Doomsday. But moving on to number 6, I have Black Panther. And this is just another Coogler masterpiece, man. The MCU, I don't know if Kevin Feige knows how lucky he is that he got Ryan Coogler involved with the MCU, because good God, dude, this movie, it holds up so well. I think Michael B. Jordan in this movie is so freaking peak. It's probably the best villain performance throughout the entirety of the MCU. You can say Brolin as Thanos, you know, and I'm not going to argue with you, but Killmonger is just the best. T'Challa is the best. Wakanda is the best. It's such a creative and beautiful movie, and I just love it so much. It's probably going to continue to move up my list. But moving on to the top 5. We got number 5 is Shang-Chi, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we still don't have a sequel. They're talking about the sequel still. I don't know what the hell is happening. My last ranking, I was like, where's the sequel? We're still here, man. Still no sequel, but it still is one of my favorite MCU films. I love this movie. What Destin Daniel Cretton managed to pull off with the stunt choreography, also the fact that he's directing the new Spider-Man, like, that's really exciting. But I just loved how different this movie was. We haven't gotten that side of, I guess, that culture in the MCU so much, and it all comes down to that bus scene, man. Simu Liu, like, what he can do in that bus when he's kicking all those guys' asses. The dialogue's great in it. I love the chemistry between him and Awkwafina, and as much as people complain about the third act and the dragon and all of that stuff, I love it, dude. I find the third act to be so freaking thrilling. I love everything that happens between him and his dad, and then I love everything that happens outside of that, and like the growth that you see from the character of Shang-Chi. It's awesome. We just need to see him again. But moving on to number 4, and this is when things just get really serious. You know what I mean? Number 4 is Endgame. Yes, I don't like it quite as much as Infinity War, and I feel like people can trade those in and out. For me, Endgame is one of the best MCU films out there, and in a similar way to what Joss Whedon did with the first Avengers, what the Russos managed to pull off with a decade-long story and bring it all together in this insane culmination event and actually be successful, it's pure insanity. When you think about what this is, it's absolute insanity that this is even good, that this is even something that we're still talking talking about, but it is. And so my top 4, yeah, that's Endgame, baby. But moving on to number 3, we're gonna take it back to the OG. I got Iron Man. This first movie, it still holds up. It's the best way to kick off this freaking marathon. I go in order of release. I don't go in chronological every single time I rewatch this because I have to kick things off with Iron Man. This is the first movie that I watched out of the MCU. I remember going to the movie theater to see it. I remember thinking, God, what is this new Iron Man thing? I just want to watch The Dark Knight, but I guess I'll give Marvel a little bit of a chance, and it blew me away. I think Robert Downey Jr. is probably the best cast comic book character of all time, and this movie just, it never misses. Every single rewatch is better than the last, and I love it. But moving on to the top 2, my number 2 is Infinity War, and I'm just a sucker for that, like, either the middle chunk or the cliffhanger. So like Empire Strikes Back, the second season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Infinity War, like when the good guys lose. As simple of a story structure as it can be, I just think it's a really important thing within storytelling, showing that sometimes you do lose, but then there's always the next chapter, you know what I mean? In the next chapter, the good guys always find a way and they have to get through it, but it's just that feeling you get, that feeling you got walking out of the theater after Infinity War, being like, what the hell just happened, dude? There's nothing to me that compares to that freaking level of excitement that I had and just the anticipation that I had after that movie. It's beautiful and it still holds up to this day. But moving on and finishing off this list, we got my number 1, and it is Captain America: Winter Soldier. This came in number 2 last time to No Way Home, and after another rewatch up until this point, I think Winter Soldier is my favorite movie in the MCU. It is so freaking good. It is such an improvement to Captain America: The First Avenger. You kind of replace some of the fantastical stuff that's going on with that movie with some of this realistic, crazy, tense action stuff. You also have like this spy thriller feel, and you have the introduction of Black Widow. Like, I love all that. I also just love what this sets up now with Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes. When I first saw Winter Soldier, I hardly thought about Bucky Barnes, and when he revealed himself to be Bucky, I was like, oh hey, oh, is that the guy from the first one? Oh yeah, he's his friend, right? But now, after like 16 million appearances from Bucky, it just has a lot of weight to it, and I love, this is the Russo's introduction to the MCU. I love what they managed to pull off, the elevator scene in this freaking movie. All of it, dude. Winter Soldier is so freaking badass. But that is it. That is all 37 MCU films ranked. At this point, I do want to throw it over to you guys. Head down to the comment section. I want to know your list. What is your ranking, and how does it compare to mine? Do you hate mine? Do you love mine? Do you think I'm valid on some of it? I would love to hear from you guys. Also, my friends, I have other ranked videos here on the channel. I have other MCU content here on the channel, and I'll also be making some more ranked videos here very, very shortly. So make sure to stick around, watch another video after this. I'd love to have you be a part of the Jones Vibes community, but more than anything, my friends, keep up the good vibes, all right? I will see you in the next video. Peace!